Welcome to Hallie Rambles. I'm Hallie Tyler, and let's get to some rambling. So, I know what you're probably thinking. What? Hallie wearing color? Recently, I've decided to adventure into some colored v-necks. Got a green one and two brown ones. I also have a couple of white button-ups. I know, a little crazy, not something I'm going to wear all the time, but I'm adventurous. If you saw the title of this video, you'll know we'll be talking about this book, I Hate Everyone But You by Gabby and Allison. I really love their channel called Just Between Us, so I was super excited to actually get to read their book. I was actually working on this before Taryn and I moved in together. It was one of the last things that I packed, so that meant that it was one of the last things that I unpacked. So I just finished it today, and I wanted to share some of my thoughts. The general premise of this book was to follow two young women, Eva and Jen, who are best friends, and they are going to colleges on opposite sides of the country basically, and they both go through their own type of, I guess, sexual romantic explorations, and it's kind of them communicating along the way as they grow into these separate different people. Eva holds a strong resemblance to Allison Raskin's Skip persona on JBU. Jen also has very strong resemblance to Gabby Dunn's Skip persona on JBU. They're supposed to be different characters but hold a strong resemblance. At least that's definitely how they come across. They really love the content that gets put out on that channel and the skits specifically, so I was disappointed that I was not in love with this book. One of the first things that you will notice about this book is the formatting. It's an unusual formatting. It is literally just texts and emails back and forth between the two main characters. So you don't get any description of the setting, you don't get any description of facial expressions or how a character is feeling or anything like that. It's just the exchange between these two girls via text and email. It's a really fascinating formatting, which I imagine would have been very challenging. Unfortunately for me, it really removed a lot of the setting and the texture that you would normally find in a novel. While the characters were still full and colorful, and they did still tie back into a similar kind of snarky banter that the personas on JBU have, which is one of my favorite part of the skits, because of the vernacular conversations just solely between the texts and emails. The content really came across a lot more superficial for me, which was kind of a bummer since we're really actually bringing up very important topics. Young women who are discovering their sexuality and exploring, what their boundaries are and what they're into, and who they want to become. And I feel like the conversations that were exchanged didn't allow for a more in-depth representation of what that entails. That kind of content should really be more represented in literature. The way that it was presented did kind of leave me wanting. Even with the conversations or discussions that the two characters have about their sexual romantic encounters and such, it still felt more on the end of PG. This to me represented sexual escapades as a more casual thing. While everyone has their own threshold, I sometimes feel like current media is telling us that it has to be this casual thing, that being intimate is casual. So I really would have liked the book to have dive deeper into the vulnerability and intimacy and the connection that you have with people, but I don't think that the formatting really allowed for that. Allison and Gabby have really a great talent for bringing a story to life with humor on screen, and so I think that this story actually probably would have been better. I would have enjoyed it more if it had been a screenplay. I think that would have allowed for us to see the humor in the characters a lot more, also allowing for representation of the messages that I think that the book was trying to say a little bit more in-depthly. I would like to say that I found the main character Ava to be incredibly empathetic. I completely related to her, and that was something that I related to her even more so than the very similar character that Allison plays in her skits on JBU. So it was like a new depth to that type of character, and I did enjoy that a lot. It's a super fast-paced book because of the formatting. There are not chapters, so it's something that you would want to more likely read all at once, kind of binge read rather than reading, a little small segment here and there. It's not as easy to kind of stop and put down as if there were chapters. I am not so hip with the times, so there was a lot of slang that I didn't really get. Probably if you were in college, then you would get a little bit more of that. You would understand a little bit more of the slang, and then you would also kind of relate to the happenings in the book. I think that this would be a great read for someone who is going to read on the plane ride home from college for the holidays. It's fast-paced, more light reading. Again, it doesn't really dive as deep into the social issues that are presented in the book, but it does actually touch lightly on some pretty serious issues. So, certainly for someone from maybe queer community, film school, or you're a journalist, you might find the content of the book a lot more relatable. And so if that is where you're at, then this book might be for you, even though I wasn't in love with it. If you are interested in a more in-depth spoiler review of this book, let me know in the comments. You reach out to us, and then maybe I can make that happen. I do have a lot of opinions about the stuff that was going on in this book. I just finished it today, so I do need some time to digest all of the plot lines and everything to kind of come to my final conclusions. But I would be interested in doing that. So let us know if that's something, or let me know if that's something that you'd be interested in. If you want to see more reviews of books, then you can go ahead and hit the like button, and then I'll know to give you more of that. We have actually a guest star coming on next week. Thank you so much for watching. You all have a wonderful weekend.